Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where we talk all things Commander. And this week, we're talking about the biggest mistakes that you can make in a game of Commander. We never make any mistakes here in Commander Clash, so these may or may not be based on our experience and learnings over the past, I don't know, decade plus of playing Magic. Join with me is Seth, flawless, no mistake playing player. Saffron Olive, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I know a thing or two about making mistakes in Magic, so this is right up my alley.
Krim, so sweaty that he's never punted his entire life. The Asian Avenger, how are you doing?
Is that I don't crowd surf the Karn enough on all my opponents. The only punt I've ever made.
Ed Tover, the tightest player. Never been called out in a YouTube comment ever over a misplay.
They call him Mr. Halftime. Half combo all the time. What up?
That's
how are you doing, Tover?
I'm good. I'm in Paris now. I'm back in my apartment in Paris. Which
I don't believe you.
It was funny when I said that I have an apartment in Paris. People were like, "Oh my god, he's so rich with that YouTuber money that he has an apartment in Paris. This is like vacation spot." I was like, "No, I only have one place. All right, leave me alone." But I'm back here.
Tomer, I think as much as you try to change our opinions, we all know you're in witness protection and you continuously move.
I'm actually just a green
it's
screen.
An alibi.
Right
yeah, it's an alibi. I had to change my location. Or did I?
And I am the Codfather Richard, and today we're talking about the biggest mistakes you can make in Commander, and probably how to avoid them. That would make sense. But before we get into that, today's show is brought to you by Ultimate Guard, premium protection for your trading cards. So all the deck boxes, sleeves, play mats, accessories you see on this channel are from Ultimate Guard. So you can check out ultimateguard.com and play with cool stuff just like us. And then today's show is also brought to you by Card Conduit, the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. Card Conduit lets you skip all the typing, time, and work associated with buy listing. Their curated service lets you send in as many cards as you want with buy list value of $1 or more, and you pay just a 5% service fee. You can use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards and pay only 2%. You get a detailed report and fast payment once your order is processed. You get 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/mtggoldfish. So thank you to Card Conduit for supporting today's show. And it's time for the comedy section of the week, the Ultimate Guard comment of the week. Okay, I had to do an executive decision here, boys. I went like 8 deep because like the top 8 comments are about me and Seth, you know?
We got the
conspiracy, Richard.
I wonder why.
I want to know. Hold on. Wait, what is it? Or the
Don't
first
worry,
8, dude.
I got you, Krim. I got you. You'll be on our side because from Kool-Aid Dude 7685894, I really enjoyed what Krim had to say in all of this. Yeah? Did you want me to deny that comment to me more on Seth and Richard? What a beautiful comment. What kind, supportive comments from our comment section.
Okay. So if we're going that far down, that tells me that,
how many downvotes did that top comment have?
Okay. Let's get into mistakes we used to make, possibly still make, or we see other people making. And I'm going to start off by a funny one, actually. So back in the day, Seth used to be memed on for never playing his Commander. And I don't know if we Bizarro World it, but I actually feel people play their Commander too soon, too often, right? I get yelled at all the time. Like I have like 10 mana. I have nothing to do. I have my Commander in my command zone. I pass the turn. I don't even bother casting my Commander. And the reason is your Commander is kind of important. If you cast your Commander, you do literal nothing with it and it dies. You wasted your Commander, like the amount of mana on your Commander, plus the future Commander tax. You know, that's like an explosive vegetation's worth of Commander tax you're wasting. So I only play my Commander when I have some kind of plan, right? So another example is like, let's say you have a 3 mana Commander, right? You have 3 mana. Do you play a ramp spell on 3 or do you play your Commander? A lot of people will just play their Commander and it's just gonna die, right? Like if you untap with your Commander, what can you do, right? Are you going to win the game right there? If not, you should build your resources. You should sculpt your hand, sculpt your mana base, And then, when you play your commander, make it be impactful, take over the game and win it. A lot of people just, play their commander, cross their fingers, hope it works. Maybe they untap with it, they do nothing, maybe it gets board wiped. Like you actually got to think about it and make sure you sculpt, your hand and mana. So usually you should be ramping and card drawing like crazy. And then on like 10 mana, you drop your 3 mana commander and like 4 other spells to take full advantage of your commander and then win the game or set up like a strong board position. So don't play your commander just because you can, right? Yeah, it's sitting there, but like, don't do it. Pull a Seth. Just never cast it the entire game.
Maybe I was right the whole
Wow,
time.
That's too far in the other side. Hold on.
But I mean, so I don't know if I'm quite as on board with it with Richard, but I think it really depends on your commander, right? Like there's some commanders that are going to like generate value just by being out there. If you have like an Omnath and it's going to ETB draw you a card, I'm going to run that out there, even if I got nothing else going on to like start getting the value. But then there's also commanders that require other things going on to do anything. I think like Henzi's a pretty good example of that. It wants you to be like blitzing these expensive spells. It's only a 3 mana commander, but if you don't have something you can blitz the following turn, and maybe even if you do, it might be better to wait until you can play Henzi and immediately blitz something into play so you're at least going to get some value out of it. So I think it really depends on like the specific commander, but I definitely agree like with commanders that need additional support pieces, just running out like a Krenko on an empty board on turn 4, probably not a good idea. Wait till you got some goblins sitting around so you can do something with it.
I'm on Seth with this one. I think it's really situation dependent on what other spells you can be casting that turn, but also more importantly, it's what type of commander you're running. Like if you're running a commander that basically reads, I'm going to win the game in the next couple turns if the commander sticks around and have the right support pieces, like Krenko. Then you don't want to just run it out on curve unless you have the support cards. Like generally, if you want Krenko out, for example, you want to have a couple goblins already on the battlefield. You want to have some protection for Krenko, maybe the Goblin Chirurgeon that regenerates goblins. You want that out. I don't know how to say that word.
Surprise! Tomer knows the name of that right off the top.
I mean,
the Fallen Empire's All-Star that
course
regenerates goblins.
I'm a Zada connoisseur. I need to have my goblins alive, and then like also Goblin War Chief, or the one that gives it haste, so you can immediately activate it. There's a lot of pieces that you want to have out. At the same time, though, there are also commanders where they generate, draw or a ramp, and they're not crucial to actually winning the game. Like, I have an equipment deck that runs Akiri Fearless Voyager. It's whenever an equipped creature attacks, you draw a card. Generally speaking, I'm playing like an equipment that ETBs with like a rebel token or something attached to it on turn 2. Turn 3, I play my commander, I swing, I immediately draw a card. If my commander dies, that's not a really big deal because my commander is not my win condition. It's just a card draw engine, and I want to have that out ASAP. So yeah, if you're in like, I think it depends on the commander, and also what else you're wanting to do. If I have a better turn 3 play than my commander, then yeah, it should just run out the better turn 3 play too.
What are the better turn 3 plays?
In that deck, like if I don't have an equipped creature on turn 2 to swing it with, then I'll play probably something else on turn 3.
I think
Isn't
ramp
that
is
literally like the last thing then? it's like you play your card draw if you can. You play your ramp if you play your ramp first if you can. Then you play your card draw if you can. Then if you have like literally any other on curve body, you probably play that. And then you play your commander.
My commander is my card draw, right? Whenever I'm attacking with the creature, I draw a card. So if I play a turn 2, there's like a bunch of like Formyrdan creatures, for example, that are 2-drops, and they enter the battlefield with a 2/2 rebel equipped to the creature. That's my ideal 2-drop. And then turn 3, I play my commander. I attack with the.
So you have cut a deal or your commander on turn 3? Do you play that's the question I'm trying to ask, right? Like if you have nothing going on,
Do I have
you cut a deal?
I don't like.
Am I discarding the hand size?
Whatever your 3 mana card draw is in your Akiri deck. I mean, if it is Akiri, then obviously you're gonna play that, right? But if you have another thing, would you play it or no?
I'd probably play
Akiri,
unless I didn't have a turn 2 equipped creature on the battlefield. Because if I do, then I'm going to play Akiri and I'm going to put some more board presence on the battlefield. But if I don't have that, then I'm more than happy to play more equipments or do other things instead.
I would ramp and card draw over basically any commander. I don't care which one. If I have the choice,
Basically
what has to ramp spell or card draw spell?
Trainer of Behemoth, ramp card draw.
Ramp.
But what if your commander is ramp or card draw?
Yeah,
What if your commander is ramp or card draw?
That would
Do you
be
play it early?
then well, yeah, probably, yeah. In that
Only
case,
if it's the
it is
last
my
card
ramping
draw
card
I
draw.
have.
But if I have another
Right?
option, I would probably cast that instead.
Yeah.
Cram.
Krim disagrees.
Well, I mean, I just hate ramp like all of that.
Oh,
I
that's
refuse to
all
ramp.
agreeing with-
I just disagree with ramping, but not because it's the bad play. It's that is the ethical incorrect play.
What about non-land ramp though? Like let's say you're playing is it
Mana Rock?
you're playing Pirates of Malcolm Keen-Eye Navigator. Whenever you deal damage with a pirate, you make a treasure. Would you run that on turn 3?
I mean, I would consider that an acceleration, but not ramp.
now ramp.
You played a bunch of Lotus Petals. No. You're just playing Lotus Petals. Those are one-offs. That's why I'm okay with that.
All right,
But, like,
Dockside fine.
I
man.
Dockside is the biggest offender of all Magic in general, but
It's
I
not
don't
ramp.
need-
It's just
like
Lotus
treasures.
Petals.
It's one time.
Lotus Petals.
that is like 50 Lotus Petals. Then that's different. But in all seriousness, I think playing your commander too soon or whatever is very true. I see it'll happen a lot, and usually, as Tomer had mentioned, whenever I play my commander, I think everyone assumes I have Fierce Guardianship, and it's
do.
because I usually
Yes,
do.
you do.
Or some form of free interaction. So like, and if I don't, then the main reason why I'm playing out my commander is because I'm baiting you to use your removal on it because I'm trying to play a bigger threat. So the amount of times I've just thrown my commander to the wolves is actually many. With the idea in mind to pull out some kind of removal interaction, just so then I can resolve what I'm actually going to do, like a giant hate piece or something like that.
Yeah, stacks piece.
So,
You gotta clear the way for those stacks piece.
Yeah, I personally do that because I put value over me shutting down the nonsense that can pull ahead, but before me activating and enabling my own game plan. So that's the way I play, because whatever I'm gonna do, I can eventually get there if you can't pull too far ahead. So I'm not too worried about that. So I like playing your commander if it deems if it actually carries some kind of weight in your game plan. Maybe your hand is looking to go turn 5 or and beyond. Well, you need something to do then, so you need to draw out removal. You need to get some kind of interaction because no one's done anything yet. So that's how I usually play. And if not that, I mean, yeah, I have some form of protection. Like, I'll give you the insider scoop. I usually have some form of nonsense is why I'm playing it.
And like
So,
holding
I
up
mean,
your
you need to get the
commander.
protection in
Yeah.
hand before you play your commander, right? So if you don't
Yeah,
have
yeah,
it, then you need to wait. If you have it, then you can consider, going for it, right?
Like let's say
Yeah.
your commander is going to win the game next or have a big turn next turn if it gets to survive. Like Joda the Unifier. If you just run out Joda the Unifier on curve, like probably it's going to die. If your opponents just let you untap with it, then
They're gonna-
They clearly don't have anything.
GG,
They don't
then,
have anything.
Then you got lucky there. But I do agree with Richard. If I had the chance to cast Joda or just a ramp spell because I have like protection in my hand or something like that, I would much rather just delay Joda 1 or 2 turns, maybe allow other people to pop off before me to take off some of the heat from myself as well, and then play Joda, with some backup protection, and then immediately cast some spells, at the same time. So even if it does die, I got my value out of it or something like that. So I do agree with Richard. You have to think about what you're going to be doing with your commander when it goes onto the battlefield.
All right, Krim, hit us with a common mistake.
So this one's pretty actually very rampant and often why I get yelled at by the YouTube comments. And it's because people assume their deck will always do its thing. Maybe this isn't like I think that there is merit to this because it's like, well, what about how does that affect gameplay? Well, I see people tilting off too early. Right? Like it's like, hey, I didn't draw my 1 in 99 cards. Time to concede, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, that's not how that works. And I genuinely think that just because your deck, let's say you end the game, you were close to doing your thing. That's, let's not lie here. I think you shouldn't be going into games expecting that you'll pull off what you want to do. Knowing that nowadays even precons just have I guess improved their amount of interaction. We've seen this with our precon episodes where it's like 4-hour long games because there's 15 board wipes.
The Lord
Just
of the Rings
assume
one.
that when there's that doing your thing may not always be guaranteed. So I think a lot of the mistakes that I see that you'll see me mentioning in Commander is not. Yes, there's some play things that you'll hear me like agree with the guys, but mostly it's actually the mental part of it. It's the mental part of Magic that I think I see a lot of mistakes in. And the main thing I have is just, assuming your deck will always do its thing. Because let's not lie here. Some people, like, if I said I didn't get to do my thing, do you really feel bad? Let's be honest here. Because my thing is usually...
Is us not doing our thing. Yes, of course I don't feel bad.
I didn't catch joke.
If I just do the puppy dog, but guys, please, can I just do my twing, please? And then like maybe if I just do that enough times, Richard will not Hour of Revelation me 100 times.
So, Krim, I got a question for you. What can people change to avoid this mistake? Like, is it like having more of a backup plan for if your deck doesn't do the thing you're trying to do? Is it having like ways to get your thing back from the graveyard if it gets disrupted? Like, is there anything actionable if people are like trying to avoid this problem that they can do that you can think of?
Gameplay wise, specifically, I have been teaching a ton of friends and whatnot Commander, and they've been loving it. And oh god, more Crims in the world. But like having taught like a ton of new people, the one thing I always tell all of them right now is have a plan B, C, all the way down to even like F, you know what I mean? Yeah. And maybe plan 1 never works, and people are like, oh, but Krim, that's a non-bow with your commander. Yeah, because I assume at some point my commander won't be in its command zone, or in the command zone, won't be on the field. I can't play it anymore. So maybe something's shutting it down, right? Like if I have a Planeswalker deck, plan for the Immortal Sun. Let's just say I don't have anything, right? So having that and recursion's very nice. And then at the end of the day, if you try to have recursion, plan A, B, C, and D, and you were still like shut down, or maybe the team assembled together to stop you, you did your job. They treated you with the most respect because they clearly didn't let you do your thing. So that means you were respected at the table. Every time people kill me first, that's respect.
And I think, like, to piggyback on that, I think it's also important to remember in Commander, you're playing 100 singleton cards. Like, part of what makes the format fun is the variance, that you're not going to do the same thing every time. So I think like just coming to grips with that, if you're playing a standard deck or a modern deck where you're playing 60 cards and 4 copies of all your good cards, your goal is kind of to do the same thing every time and reduce variance. Commander's kind of the opposite. You're playing 100 singleton cards. Part of the fun is it's going to be different every time. So I think like coming to grips with the fact that you're not always going to do the coolest thing in your deck or the biggest thing, that's just like part of the format, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I don't run tutors, right? I try to actually do the opposite. I try to increase variance.
I think this is like a fact that I feel like if you just watch Commander content all the time, you might not notice that like we try to curate our decks and stuff to make sure that everybody gets to pop off and everything. But in a typical game of Commander, it's pretty often that like not everybody gets to do their thing. I think it's like you said, 4 players singleton,
huge,
high variance, and odds are if somebody's doing their thing, that means you are not doing your thing, right? Like if somebody's drawing all the cards, has all the mana, well, when you start deploying your board, they're going to have answers for it. They're going to destroy everything that you're trying to do, or they're just going to win before you get to deploy your own thing. One or the other. It doesn't really matter. Like if your team no interaction, well, okay, they just won before you. If their team heavy interaction, they'll just blow up your stuff and stop you from doing the thing. So it's like it's not like everybody can always pop off every single game, and odds are it's not going to happen. So I think just being mentally prepared to take the L's sometimes and not get your deck popping off is going to be a healthy mentality, or else you're going to be kind of disappointed in some of your Commander games.
You need to be fine with the participation award.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you play
full dad
1v1,
on us,
your win rate is supposed to be 50%.
Yeah.
So when you feel like you're losing more games than you're winning, like, oh, that's bad, right? And when you win more than you lose, you're like, oh, that's good. But in Commander, if everything is equally balanced, it's 4 players, your win rate's 25%. You will lose more than you win. And that's just normal. So it may feel bad, but like that's normal. So you should go with the intent of, I'm going to play this game, stuff's going to happen. I'm most likely going to lose, but if I win, that's cool, right? And if you have that mentality, you won't be so upset, right? Because it is a negative win rate. Right? You're gonna lose way more than you win in Commander. There's 4 players. It's it's just the way it's like the Royal Rumble or something, right? There's just too
Yeah.
many people. Your chance
Yeah.
of winning is like very
That's
low.
a wrestling reference for those that don't know, by the way.
Does that still exist? I don't know.
I don't
but I
know.
used to
I haven't
watch
seen
that.
wrestling.
That's where 30 guys
Yeah.
run into a ring and the last one
Yeah.
standing wins.
I played a video game based
yeah.
on that. Oh my god, my
Yeah.
memories are coming back.
Yep.
I played a video
That-
game like that.
In
I
the
remember that
arcades
game.
too, baby.
It was like on the N64 or something.
All right.
What you just said, Richard, does that now excuse the fact that I can't? If I decide I want to go consistently 1 in 3 at FNMs, because now I've played so much Commander, like
Good on.
hey, I won one of my matches at an FNM.
I mean that's actually good. I mean, I think most people would be better served being chill about any competitive result. Even FNM. Even if you're playing competitive Magic and you get 30% win rate at FNM, you're there to play Magic cards. You're not there to win, right? Because
Yeah.
if you want to win, turns out you probably suck at Magic because we all do, right? Like if we sit down with LSV, we're gonna die. We're not gonna win. Reduke's gonna
There's
crush
like-
us,
there's
right?
like-
Like
yeah.
it's not really gonna work out. We have day jobs. Unfortunately for us, it's Magic players, but for other people, it's a normal day job, and they're gonna get crushed by people who play Magic all the time, right?
Richard-
So it's kind of normal.
Did you just tell all 4 of us right now we're professionally bad at Magic?
We're professionally
Like,
bad.
I think
We're professionally bad. It's unfortunate I have to break the news to you guys. For the amount of Magic we play, we are probably very bad.
Probably
I,
true.
I agree with
Oh,
that.
Richard, I have exactly 3 Planeswalker points. I'll let you know that.
I also wanted to say real
I
quick.
miss those days. Planeswalker points.
I wanted to say real quick too. It also might help your EV if you also realize that your deck is not going to do its thing, because a lot of times people kind of like check out. If their deck is not doing anything, they're like, "Oh, I might as well just concede." Yada yada yada. But realistically, I know many games where I've been out of the game for like the first like 10 turns. I've been doing nothing. Maybe either I had a really bad start or I had a good start. It got crushed. A farewell got me real good, and I'm set back to the Stone Age. But later on in the game,
Right, play the
everybody's
combo.
throwing their resources at each other. Yeah, you can Kiki combo them out of nowhere. You just keep playing to your outs. Like if you're knocked to the Stone Age, if your deck's not doing its thing, that means you're not a threat. And people have to focus on the biggest threat at the table. You still have a chance of stealing the game later on, Like you don't have to, like if you have the right mindset, you're gonna have more fun at the table, but you're also gonna win more games.
All right, Seth,
Ooh.
hit us with a common mistake.
All right, I got I call this one the Phil special, but it's actually the Seth special because I was doing this long before Phil was our Commander Clash, which is making a big scary play that doesn't actually win the game. So I see this with Phil a lot, and I did this so much. I think I maybe do it less now than I did the first like 5 or 6 seasons of Commander Clash, but you cast like some huge card draw spell, this huge ramp spell, this big scary thing. Maybe you say like, oh, next turn's going to be really good. Or if you guys let me untap, I'm going to win the game. And then everyone murders you. I remember very clearly a long time ago being very excited about resolving a Conflux. Conflux lets you tutor a card of each color in your hand. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be sweet. Look at all these cool cards. But it's like 8 mana and everyone just like attacked me before I got to untap. And I died before I cast any of my cool Conflux cards. So I think that avoiding those plays that look really big and scary but don't actually impact the battlefield, especially if you're
You
not
are
in a
blowing
position where you
Tober's
can
mind.
defend yourself, is a mistake that is easy to make and that I still make sometimes, but it should be avoided if you can.
I feel like I'm in Bizarro World because I swear, like a couple of weeks ago, you guys were all like telling me how Seagate Restoration is like the best thing ever. And what did I say? I'm like, you're spending like 8 mana to draw like 7 cards. You're fully tapped out, and I'm gonna attack you. Like, what's going on here? And now you're just saying, making a big, like, spending your entire turn to draw a bunch of cards and doing nothing. It's like, oh, I'm gonna win the game next turn. Is bad actually. What's going on, Seth?
But that's MDFC Tomer, so it's
No!
that's actually a land.
It's also a land. That's true. Yo, there's merit to that.
So you never play the
There's
spell time.
context, right? If everyone has a full board, you don't snap off that Seagate Restoration, right? If
Yeah.
everyone has like Dirtle 1/1 sitting around, then you snap it off, right?
That's
And
fair.
how can you snap off Seagate Restoration? Because Phil went right before you and dropped an Eldrazi, right? And it's the untap special, right? It's like if I untap, you guys are dead, and you see it's not even like a question, are we dead, right? You see it on the board. So when that happens, that person usually dies, right? Like usually a full table's worth of resources can take them out or neutralize that threat. So it's the untapped
We learned that.
special. We
we
do
learned
not,
that
at the
specifically
same time,
this
though,
past episode.
we do not
right?
put
Seth?
something that requires a giant untap to
Yeah.
win. That's why you gotta like have haste enablers. You gotta like combo out of nowhere. This is like the half combo piece thing, right? You put
Yeah.
half a combo piece on the battlefield, and then someone's like, "Well, that's incredibly frightening. If you untap and play the second half, we're dead on the spot." And you may not even have it in your hand, right? You may have no way of getting it, but no one knows that, and they're super scared, so you're dead. So yeah, you got to just take people by surprise. You can't just give them a whole turn cycle.
And
I love Flash.
And I should say, I play Seagate Restoration in every deck. I love big splashy plays, but there is like, you got to be careful with the timing of them. And you can find windows to make them good. And part of the reason why you can get away with it with MDFCs in specific is if the game progresses in a way where you're not going to get that window, then you're like, oh, I can just play it as a land. I don't play like Conflux anymore because I don't know if I've ever actually successfully confluxed without getting killed before I cast the cards. But if I get the option to play it as a land, it helps with the Seagate Restoration plan.
Have you ever cast Dream Halls into Conflux? It feels like you're cheating at Magic, and it's very good.
I need it. That kind
Have you
of
ever
is cheating. I need to play more Dream Halls.
Dream
Motion
Halls.
Thief and a wheel.
Yeah.
That feels very good.
See, but I think that actually applies to actually winning the game though, because if you like Notion Thief wheel me and the entire table's just like has no board state, I'm like, okay,
Yeah, you got it.
Tomer?
bye.
Did you just say not to check out?
Wait. No. Yeah,
We
hold
just
on.
said don't check out too early.
Don't take
This
away my
ain't
cards.
sports.
Don't take away my cards. You can farewell my
This-
board.
But
Don't
Tomer,
touch my cards.
think about it through the lens of sports ball.
I know. I
Is
wouldn't.
the clock
actually
at
just-
zero?
I wouldn't.
Is the clock at zero?
I wouldn't
No,
concede.
so, you know-
I wouldn't. I was making a joke.
But playing against you, Krim, is like the last 2 minutes of a basketball game where they just foul each other all the time and nothing gets done and it's just foul shots.
But tell me this. Are the last 2 minutes of basketball not the most exciting?
in between all the foul shots, yes.
It's strategic fouling, right? Like it is strategic.
All right, Tomer, hit us with a common mistake. Maybe
All
the
right.
commonest mistake of all.
All right. This one, I know this is going to rile up the YouTube comments because we've discussed this in the past and we've had some, let's say, backlash to this. But I will just propose maybe that some people listening do not play enough lands. And by some people, I mean most people don't play enough lands. What do I say by not enough lands? Okay, one example. Last night I was at my FNM, or it was not Friday night. It was Wednesday night Magic. It was Commander night at the LGS, and one person was playing Hinata, and they mulled to 5, and we're like, "Ooh, that's really rough." Like, and somebody asked, "How many lands are you running?" And that person said 24 lands. And collectively there was a gasp at the table. and we just politely suggested maybe you should raise the lands. And they said, no. I run a lot of mana rocks, so I can cast Hinata no problem. And we asked, how many mana rocks? 8 mana rocks. So between the 24 lands and the 8 mana rocks, 8th belt, that was enough to cast Hinata very consistently. The problem was that obviously, like they mulled down to 5. They actually hit all their lands drops too. They got lucky with it. They cast Hinata. Hinata got killed. They could not cast Hinata for the rest of the game. They could not hit any more land drops. It was over. What I'm trying to say is, there are statistic methods to figure out how many lanes you're running, and I'm just gonna say most of you are not running enough. If you say I'm running like 32 lands, but I'm just gonna paste in the video description. There is a mathematical solution to this done by Frank Carson, very, very smart math person. He's figured it out, and he even keeps in track like your mana curve, your average mana value of all your spells, and also all the ramp you're running too. It's all factored in to tell you how many lands you're being running. You'll be shocked how much better and how much less mulling you have to do if you actually run enough lands. Just saying.
So I don't think we run enough lands, honestly. I don't think I run enough lands. I used to be like, no, look at all those noobs with their 33 lands. I got 37. I know how to play Magic. But actually, I think I still don't run enough lands. I've slowly been creeping up to like 39, 40, 41. So even as I was thinking I was playing enough because I was playing 37 or 38 when other people are like playing 33, I think I was still like playing way too few lands compared to what I should be. So I have never regretted adding more lands to my deck. Every time I go up a number to like 40 and 41, I have never been like, oh God, now I'm flooding out all the time. That was a horrible decision. It ends up working out when the deck runs more smoothly. So I think, honestly, we might still be not playing enough lands.
So I'll just say what
I fully like kind of agree with that, right? Like I used to think like 36 lands was enough. And I mean, I know when the lower curve decks I was playing, like I think the one thing I get remembered for the most is the Adeline deck that had like 33 lands.
Mhm.
And I'm like, but the deck's top curve is 3 mana.
Yeah.
So like that, I think that is just like, it's fine. If you're like a 2 mana deck or whatever, then that's great. But other than that, I find that if you are playing 4+ like, cost spells and like many of them, I think you can't actually go lower than 38. I have gone to 38 as a hard like number, as in anything lower than that's non-negotiable, right? I cannot play less than 38. I want to try 39. I've been going up to 39 a little bit more, and now that we've got all these MDFCs coming out from Modern Horizons 3, I'm definitely not afraid to add more lands.
I'm gonna say it's not just deck building, but people play wrong too. You know, when you cast like Thrill of Possibility, or you draw cards, you go to like 8 and you got to discard to hand size, and then people like, oh, land, throw it away, right? What is this cycling land? We'll cycle it away, and then the next turn they miss their land drop and like fail to play their curve because they decided that lands are not good. Deck thinning. I still remember the Endless Horizons comment where you play Endless Horizons to thin your deck out of planes. Like,
it
you
works.
need to play a land every turn the rest of the game, and usually whoever ends up with the most lands is probably going to win. Like, you're talking about like 14, 15, 20, 25 mana, right? Like, people don't understand how impactful a single land is. Like, take the most garbage Magic card you could think of, remove 2 off its cost, 1 off its cost. What does it look like, right? Take the best Magic card possible, add 1 mana to its cost. What does it look like? It's like Swords to Plowshares is now utter trash, right? But every time you ramp or hit a land drop, you're basically reducing or giving you the ability to cast these spells compared to someone who did not, right? So it counts as a reduction or an increase based on, and the coveted double spell, right? The Seagate Restoration into another 8-drop, into a 4-drop, into 2 mana counter spell is how you win games, right? Because you just have so much land and resources available to you. So people do not value lands at all in Commander, and I don't know why. Like, people just go to 4 lands and stop. Like, that's a way to end the game. You get 1 Wrath, and you can't cast your commander ever again. You can't play anything. You're locked to literally playing a card draw spell while someone else is playing like a 10-drop. Like, that is so bad for you, right? So just value mana more, I think, in general. Play lots of lands. Don't discard them. Don't cycle them, right? Like, keep them. Make the land drops.
People value card draw, but they don't value being able to cast the spells that they draw. That's the crux of it.
Yeah, I think that is definitely true. And it's getting easier and easier because we got all these utility lands and we got all these MDFCs. So there's no excuse. Like it hurt 10, 15 years ago when you had to play like a whole bunch of actual boring lands. But now that your lands can be spells, they can draw you cards, they can give your creatures haste and unblockable. So think of them like spells in some ways, if that makes it easier to add more of them to your deck, because I think that still is the biggest thing that people mess up.
Also, if people aren't going to be reading the article, I'll just say really quickly what the formula is. You start at 40 or 41 lands if you have an average mana value of 3 for your deck, which is typical for commander decks. And then for every 3 to 4 cheap card draw or ramp spells, you take away 1 land. And it's cheap. Cheap is defined as 0 to 2 mana cost. And ramp is like, like a rampant growth or an arcane signet or what that. And card draw is just anything that says draw a card or draw 2 cards or draw 3 cards. Like a ponder is cheap card draw. That would count for that. So if you have 4 ramp spells, you take away a land. You take 8 ramp spells, you take away 2 lands. You have, 12 that are ramp and cheap card draw, you take away 3 lands. So you can get around to like 37 lands in a typical deck if you have like 12 rampish / card draw cantrippy thingies, like it's very reasonable. I'm not saying like go 45 lands in all your decks. It's just like I think 38 is pretty average for most people to hit, like I don't know. Play more lands.
Play more lands.
All right. Trigger warning here. If I hear this word in Commander every single time,
oh no,
I am so enraged. And I don't know that people even know what it means.
This is my favorite type of deck.
I don't know if I know what it means, but tempo. My God.
That's my favorite archetype, Richard. Why are you calling me
tempo.
out?
You can't play a tap land because of tempo.
Yes.
You can't play a solemn because of tempo. Okay. Commander is not a sprint. Okay,
well, my
so commander is not like the first person to 4 mana slams their commander wins the game. If it actually is, then there's an easy solution to this. It's called interaction, right? Because the first person out of the gate is the first person that gets shot, right? So it's gonna be like this ongoing battle of attrition, right? So you want to set up for late game. You don't want to tempo and sprint out of the gate, right? So for example, you're running a marathon, you don't run as fast as you can in the first 100 meters, okay? You need to pace yourself so that you can run the entire marathon, right? So everyone keeps going tempo this, tempo that. You will not lose the game on turn 5, right? If you did, play more interaction, right? Like one board wipe will reset the whole thing. You want to spend the slower turns at the beginning and not the later turns. Like if you're on turn 8 or 9, and doing slow setup things, you're probably going to die, right? But if you're on turn 3 or 4 and doing slow setup things, people haven't mustered the ability to kill you yet, right? And if they did, then you interact with them, right? So I hate tempo so much. It only applies in 1v1. Commander is a marathon. Commander is a marathon, not a sprint, right? Like you need to be accruing lands and cards to push through the 8,000 pieces of interaction that are about to happen. Right? Yep. like there's going to be so much interaction happening. If you're the first person to combo off, you lose, right? What you need to be is the second or third person to combo off, right? The first and second person eats all the interaction. Everyone is out of gas and drained, and then you go for it, right? So like that's what you should be aiming to do, not sprinting out of the gate, having everyone burn their swords to plowshares and counter spells on you, and then wondering why like your deck sucks, right? So pace yourself. No tempo. Pace yourself.
Wait, hold on. When you say pacing yourself is also determining the tempo of the...
Yeah, you're going at a lower tempo.
Tempo just means speed. You should be playing slow and not fast. Okay, everyone wants to play fast for some reason, and they think like any tap land will like destroy their whole curve or something, and like their game is lost, right?
But isn't that a tempo deck? Also, like trying to just play one thing, right? Slowly, but pace myself before deploying all my threats.
I don't know what we're saying anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, it's an end game. Obviously, you play at some speed, and you could call that some kind of tempo, right? But usually, people mean fast tempo, right? When they say tempo, right?
Okay, I actually totally agree with Richard. For most decks, like if you're trying to just like pop off, combo off, win the game, you don't have to be the first one trying to combo off and win the game. In fact, that's probably going to be a bad idea if your opponents actually run a decent amount of interaction, because you're going to be the one who's going to be eating all the interaction, and then the next person who pops off is the one who actually wins the game. That's bad. However, if you're running like a tempo deck, like let's say like Edric, for example. You're
What's
playing
a tempo?
Edric. You're playing Edric, okay? You're playing Edric. You draw a card for each creature you deal damage. Then you want to go like turn 1 flyer, turn 2 double flyer, turn 3 attack with play Edric and attack and draw a billion cards, right? You don't want to wait turns. To drop
Edric is not a
Edric.
tempo deck, right? Because tempo implies you get a lead and you hold it, right? Edric gets a slight advantage and then takes infinite turns and wins the game.
Tempo,
Right? There's no that's not like a tempo, right? Like that's
That's
you know, like that's
I'm going
not
at my own tempo.
right?
You're going at my tempo, not my tempo.
Can you even like successfully play a tempo deck in Commander? It seems so hard with 3 opponents that you're having to deal with. Like, how do you play like a 60 card style tempo deck successfully in Commander?
You play fairies. You
Yeah.
play Alayla. My Alayla deck is actually a tempo deck, right? Because I get a little bit of a lead, right? By building a wide board of fairies. I play everything at instant speed. And then I just, like, once I finally pull ahead, I keep the lead by, at that point, generating so many 1/1 fairies without actually having to apply a lot of pressure. I invest minimal resources, and I just make the table, like, deal with it as it comes away. Like, as I slowly just start building a fairy army. And, I just sit there with a grip full of cards because you haven't done anything. I'm also goading because whenever a fairy connects. So in a way, I'm also getting additional burn damage. So, or more reach, if you will, by making you attack with your creatures at someone that's not me. So still dictating the tempo of like the game a bit, and then playing a tempo deck, right? Like I am playing fairies, which is a tempo deck in 60 card format. I took that play style and I applied it right to Commander. And then some people will call it control, but that's not control. I promise you that. Control will kill you much slower.
Just sounds like control with extra steps. Merciful
Nah,
control.
no, here we go. Is control stacks? I don't know. Is anything that makes me unhappy stacks?
It's almost like, okay, let me explain tempo in a way that people actually should understand, right? So the idea of tempo in 1v1 is you play a card, your opponent plays a card. You won for wanting them on resources, right? So the minute somebody gets ahead, like if I somehow get 2 cards down, you only get 1, and then for the rest of the game we 1 for 1, I'm ahead in tempo. In Commander, you do one thing by default. People are doing 3 things because you have 3 opponents, right? So for every 1 card you play, everyone else is playing 1 card. For every 1 land you play, everyone's playing 3 lands. So the minute you're in front, it's 1-to-3 ratio. It's almost impossible to out-tempo that unless you're like instantly winning the game. Like it's not really a tempo, right? So literally I just win the game because I got you, and then that's it. But like every turn, they're 3-to-1 resourcing you. You can't tempo that, right? Like it's like almost impossible to do. You
So
just either win the game or you really weren't playing tempo, right? Like you were really doing something else, right? But like it's very different. Like you could like I don't know, like if you put Tron down, fast bond with the 1 ring, like you might actually be able to tempo out a table, right? But it requires like an insane engine to do it. Most of the time, they're just gonna outcard you and out resource you, right? But yeah.
But like I think that is I think there are decks that can still play that play style you're talking about, but the way you got to evaluate the tempo play is like example, like Alayla goading one of your spells,
Yes.
one of your creatures.
So that
that's
neutralizes the attackers, right? So now they can't attack you at the same rate, right?
And I am netting more bodies anytime I do literally anything. So every card is essentially, every spell I cast on your turn is 2 cards. Assuming I don't have more, like a Nimrus, then that's 3 cards for every 1 card I play, right? So every one of my cards becomes actually 4 cards.
Yeah.
And
but
then
only very specific commanders. So the Benton game we played was a tempo. Benton was a tempo one because I had burgeoning, right? So I was out drawing and out manoing the whole table, the whole game.
right? But it requires like a very unique set of circumstances to get that done. And usually those commanders are OP, right? Because they can do it, right?
It's really you want if you want to have if your commander is like a mana advantage or card advantage engine that doesn't like win the game or anything, you usually want that out earlier, like Edric or like Alila, or I might call your deck the Akiri one. Like you want it out early because they're only going to be drawing you like 1 card a turn, 3 cards a turn, or something like that. They're not winning the game or anything. And you want to get that value earlier because there's only, like 10 turns in the game or 11 turns in the game. So the earlier you get them out, the more value you're going to be actually getting from your commander. But at the other hand, if you're running like something that, is not just like an incremental value engine, is something that actually will just crush people if it's sitting around for a couple tables, a couple turns, like the first sliver or something like that, you don't need to rush it out. You could actually chill a little bit. You could play some tap lands. You can run your utility spells, ramp a bit, card draw a bit, wipe the board, and then deploy. And I think that's a lot better of a way to run those decks that have commanders that do close out the game a lot faster. It's kind of like, do you want to play a Timna the Weaver style deck where it's like incremental value and you want that out earlier, or do you want something that's like a haymaker that I'll actually win and then you can play a little bit slower, play to your advantages? But I don't know.
All right.
I like
Crib.
tempo.
Crib.
Tempo exists. I will, so like going on to my next point, I think is a kind of a two-parter, I guess. It's kind of relying on the table too much. I see this happen quite often where it's like, oh, I'm going to play spell, do my game plan, and for some odd reason, I'm going to assume that the rest of the table is going to take their turn to deal with my problem. Or you know what I mean? Like, it's like,
That sounds
it's
like
like,
a
oh,
Crib problem.
like,
Richard,
I-
I'll let
I-
you board wipe. I got nothing, Crib. I don't believe you. Pass.
yeah, exactly. I will play this game of chicken every time. I will play this game of chicken.
I think the solution
generally,
is just take out your interaction. Be like,
Yeah.
now none of us will
Well,
have
that-
interaction.
I think that, and then that, so like relying on the table too much, and then the opposite of what Tomer just said is I think there's not enough interaction. Because how many games where people just go, oh, well, I assume someone else has it. Okay.
Just run more
pass.
Kiki combo then. Punish the lack of
I mean, just
interaction.
have more Kiki combo pieces. I get it. Just combo up.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know. I mean, I think that I see it all the time though, right? Like, oh, there's this thing here. I'm gonna let the table deal with it, and like the game where Seth ended up winning and ultimating his planeswalker because like, nah, Richard's playing like he's got something. I'm not gonna do anything. Whatever, it's cool. And then what ended up happening? We all lost to Seth's planeswalker, who he then was like, I'm surprised this went off. You all
Yep.
were doing things. We're like, well, I just kind of assumed Richard had something.
I've found myself playing less and less interaction, honestly. I've kind of come to the theory that, like, maybe I should just be the problem that y'all gotta answer. Like, maybe I'll just, like, draw all the cards and get all the mana, and, like, if you want to have a bunch of ways to try to stop me, go for it. But, like, if you're just, like, doing your thing, do you really need to have that much interaction? So that's kind of, like, where my philosophy has shifted, is, like, yeah, if something needs to be dealt with, maybe someone will deal with it, but hopefully I'm the thing that needs to be dealt with. And if I'm the thing that needs to be dealt with, then things are going pretty well.
Now, let's just assume here your thing is to draw 1 million cards. Like, how many times have we seen where I've had some kind of like Narset or Ashiok
Oh,
or
God.
something like that,
Yes.
right? Where it's
Mhm.
like you can't draw extra cards,
Yeah.
maybe no searching. That requires now you to actually have interaction.
That's what
And also interaction, I think is it's not just like, oh, Doomblade. Interaction means I would consider darkness, maybe. Like that's
Mhm.
that's a
Whoa.
form of interaction.
Fog
Ink
meta.
Shield.
Fog meta
Ink
Shield's a
Shield
finisher.
meta.
is a believer.
Sorry. It's both. Ink Shield is interaction
Ink Shield is
and a
truth.
closer. It does
Yeah.
both. It does both.
It's
It
actually
can
good.
do it all. So I think that in those situations, I you do need interaction, and yeah, maybe you should like taking out interaction is very scary to me, but that's probably because of play styles. But again, relying on the table too much,
Yeah.
not enough interaction. Those kind of go hand in hand, to be honest with you.
I'd piggyback on Krim as well too, because there's going to be situations where it's not a universal threat. There's going to be something that might mess you up, but your opponents don't really care about it so much. Recently, again, yesterday, I was playing against somebody who played Satoru. The one the ninjutsus and blight steals and stuff. That one. It's like every your ninjutsu and stuff. He basically played a 1-mana evasive creature, and then he ninjutsu'd out a Jin Kataxius, the new Jin Kataxius, became the new Hokage or whatever.
It's so sick.
And I was playing an artifact deck. I was playing my Tetsun deck. And guess what? The first artifact spell I cast every single turn, including instants and sorceries, that gets countered. Another person was playing Lonus, who is just a creature deck. Guess what doesn't get countered by Jin Kataxias? Creatures. So he just popped off and had a merry old time, whereas I could not cast my spells. It was not that great. I had to double spell to get anything onto the battlefield, and if I had any removal, the Jin Kataxias would blow it up. I had some removal, but it was like a 10-mana board wipe to throw out non-artifact creatures, and like Scourglass, which would take an entire turn to blow stuff up. Neither of which was ideal. I tried to cast a board wipe. It didn't work out. If I had just like a Swords or something, I probably would have been able to power through, but I didn't. And guess what? The Lonus player is not caring about the Jin Kataxias. It's me. I'm the person who's screwed by it, not them. And if you're the arch enemy, if you're like, I'm going to be the problem, deal with it, well, guess what? Everybody's going to be throwing their threats at you, so you actually have to deal with it, Seth. Not anybody else. Why do other people care about the threats? They're going at you.
That's so funny because I had a story recently where I went and I played against my friend and he blood moons the table, right? But one person is on a monocolor deck and the other one's on an Orzhov deck that has mostly basic. So I'm the only one that has no lands and I have to go to hell and back to kill this blood moon. So I am happy that I packed removal, or else I would have definitely lost that game instantly. But oh my god, like I am happy I packed interaction.
So I should say, I'm not saying you should play no interaction, but I would rather have more threats and things that advance my game plan than a whole bunch of reactive things to try to deal with what my opponents are doing.
Yeah, the YouTube comments can illustrate me and Seth together. We play basically the same. So here's the thing.
You need interaction, but you need your interaction to go super far, because you like if you're planning on like swordsing every threat, and you imagine there's going to be 6 or 7 threats in the game, that's like literally your starting hand of doing nothing but like policing the board, right? So my latest theory is you need to survive 4 important turns, okay? Like turn like 7, 8, 9, 10, someone might kill you, and you need 1 card to get you out of it. That has naturally led me to the greatest interaction spell of all time, Fog, right? Because it fogs the whole board, but like a sweeper does. Like if you sweep, right, chances are you get to untap for another turn, right? Like if you can fog a giant attack, you get to untap for another turn. You just need to do it 4 times, and by then you should have won, right? And if you haven't, then well, good luck. I don't know. You gotta scrounge something together. So you need interaction, and I do
Like
agree
Inkshield.
that delaying it to the further turn, like you don't want to like turn 2 sword someone because you're scared, right? You want to let them build up the board, maybe use it against Seth because he's popping off hard, fog him on turn 7, untap, kill him, right? Like you want your interaction to go far. You don't want to have too much interaction. So I like sweepers, I like fogs, I like dress down. Like that's the universal solvent in my opinion that like fixes everything. There's like a bunch of these cards that kind of like get out of jail free if you resolve it, obviously, right? But like get out of jail free, untap, and hope you can either win the game or deal with it, right? Because player removal is one of the best pieces of interaction, right? You fog, survive, remove the player, right? So you may not be able to deal with their artifact engine, but you can just kill them by overrunning them, right? But yeah, so you need to interact. It needs to go far, but you can't put too much interaction in your deck. You can't have like 20 pieces of interaction. Like, where's your win con? Where's your rampant card draw at that point, right? Like, you're playing a Crim control deck. You
No,
gotta have a win
Richard,
con.
let's pull it. Let's pull it back here for a second. You
No,
and
Shield doesn't
Seth,
count.
you and
That's real
Seth
good.
both benefit in this pod, specifically in this pod, from the fact that I am at the pod. Because I've
We
been
need a
told
body
season.
count. I'm pretty sure I've wrapped away more
Oh,
crap
fuck.
than you.
I-
We
like-
need a
like-
body
like-
count.
I think the comment section, I remember some people have definitely pointed out on the seasons when I'm not on Clash, like nonsense just happens the whole time and nobody is able to right the ship.
I did get to win with College the first time ever when Krim wasn't around. So that was nice.
Like,
I
so
appreciate
nonsense
that. Took like
happens.
6 years. That took 6 years, but I got it.
Phil is a non-believer in any interaction.
Oh yeah, Phil plays
dies
zero
all the
plays
interaction.
like one fog. He
Phil
plays
dies
like
all
one
the
fog.
time.
Yeah, he is the worst example.
literally-
He dies every
That-
time.
He was like, "What's Seth said?" He's like, "Just be the problem, ramp, draw cards,
His
and let other people
answers,
do
I'm
it."
gonna steal your stuff, and I hope I can steal it in time.
Yeah.
That's why you need
It
it.
really is.
But I don't. I think I've seen almost everyone try to cast the fog this season. I'm so proud of y'all.
Yeah.
I know Krim has cast the fog. I know Phil's
I have-
looking for fogs.
Every,
Seth and I have been casting
Oh,
fogs.
yeah.
every black-white deck is gonna have Ink Shield as the first card. I'll tell you that
Yeah,
going forward.
That's my commander, and then I pick my commander.
Yeah.
I still don't think we've seen Ink Shield go off. Not this season for sure.
Krim, please.
I haven't had themes of every episode have prevented me for like the other week I was on Esper deck. I was like, oh god, I want Ink Shield, but it's not a planeswalker, so I can't.
Dang.
So actually,
all right.
the guidelines and the themes have actually like bailed you all out for Ink Shield.
I think we're just saving you
see
for
it.
yourself, Chris.
I still gotta see it.
All right, Seth, hit us with a mistake.
All right. So this one is something I've been thinking about a bit, which is we all have cards that we just personally dislike, right? Tomer sees red when a Rhystic Study comes out. I can't stand a Notion Thief, or there's just certain effects that you don't like for some reason. It lines up poorly with your play style or whatever. And I think that one of the problems that I have and people have is because of those personal tastes, you have some bias in your threat evaluation. Like I was thinking about this after one of our recent games where a Notion Thief effect came down. I don't think the game's been published yet, so I won't go too in depth on it, but a Notion Thief came down, and the Notion Thief effect was kind of the good guy in that scenario, but I still really wanted to kill it just because it's a Notion Thief, and I might draw cards at some point. Or I remember a classic example with Tomer where there was I don't remember what you had, maybe like a Generous Gift or a Beast Within, and there was a Rhystic Study and a Ugin sitting next to each other on the table, and you had to fire it off on the
I
Rhystic
was
Study
correct.
because you just cannot
I was
stand the
correct.
Rhystic Study.
I regret nothing. I would do it
I
again.
won that game.
I would do it again.
But I think that sometimes our personal biases end up getting in the way of proper threat evaluation, and we kill things because we don't like them, even if they're not the right thing to deal with on the board or whatever. So just something I've been thinking about. Sometimes our personal biases get in the way with evaluating the table and the threats properly.
I will say that we are all guilty of that
Yep.
because one thing that our entire comment section agrees with is that our threat evaluation is S tier. So and so that S tier, but not in the good S tier, more like in the shite tier. So
Have you?
and I will admit that sometimes we do it for the content and the lulls,
Yeah.
but then
No, I
there
just
are
hate
the
Notion
Tomer
Thief.
moments. I mean, that's fair. There's the Notion Thief and there's the Tomer moments.
I have no
He
regrets.
kills a Rhystic.
I have no regrets. I think it was the correct play, and I'll do it again. You play a Rhystic, it's going down. I'll throw everything at it. I don't care.
The house,
I'll
my
throw everything.
kingdom for this Rhystic
I'll flip
study.
the table over just to get it off the board. I'll do it.
We do it though, and a lot of us do it, right? Like,
Oh,
okay,
no.
it sounds bad, right? When it comes from me and I talk about artifacts, I do genuinely think though there are archetypes and things that you just can't let have toys. Like they just cannot have toys. like artifact decks, doesn't matter whatever they say, they always combo you out or do some kind of infinite, right? And like it always ends that way. I promise you.
I'm not like that. I'm not like that. I'm not
Okay,
like those
okay,
older girls.
Tomer,
I'm
okay,
not like those
Tomer.
older girls, Graham.
It's not infinite because hold on, I took 50 turns and then delayed the game to assemble Cauldron. And then I infinited. but
I just
but
World
like
Slayer.
I do think that there is something that we need to like a lot of us need to be able to be better at assessing and without our biases involved. And like I get it sometimes
I think we all can do it for sure.
in that Notion Thief, right? Or like
Yeah.
I've done it myself where I'm like, oh, I there's a Nissa, I'm going to attack the Nissa, right? Like, I despise Nissa, so I'm going to attack this Nissa instead of killing the other player that's about to combo off. But I'm like, yeah, but they're about to get a random regrowth. I can't have that. Oh God, no. So like, that is one of the hardest things, because in the moment when you see blood,
Yeah.
maybe there's merit to, like, when you watch superhero movies and you watch Daredevil, like, not the Ben Affleck, sorry, the TV show.
Oh, come on. That's
Like when you
classic,
watch
though.
like superheroes and you watch them pull back, right? And they have restraint. Despite foaming at the mouth and seething,
Mhm.
they pull back and practice restraint. And you see that. And I think that's something that we all could definitely learn from.
I'd rather be the villain. I'm sorry.
That's too sweaty. You're describing like analyzing the board and making sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's
Oh
too sweaty.
God, Crimson.
You're like, oh my God,
Spike.
artifacts, kill him. This is kill him,
This is
kill him.
probably the best mistake to bring up, because I acknowledge that I do this all the time and I refuse to change my opinion on it. I refuse to be a better player. I have a
So you're saying you couldn't make it as a superhero?
no, I'd rather
You
be the
got it.
villain. I'd rather be the villain. That's more fun anyway. I
It's
also
not a mistake if it's intentional.
That's true.
Whoa.
We did it.
Oh, that's good.
We did
That's
it.
called
We're
hitting the
flawless.
copium right there. That's a
We're
lot
flawless.
of copium.
I have a question for you all. Have you ever had a Commander Night where you're playing multiple games with the same pod, and somebody like wins the first 2 games, and then game 3 you're just like, all right, all I want is for that person to lose. I don't care who else wins.
Oh,
Has anybody
that's-
ever been like
that's not
that?
happens
built
all the
though,
time.
right?
The
Isn't
rules of
that
the game.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that was
Commander
not
Clash.
part of the RC's
That's
rules.
Commander Clash. When Phil is on, when Tomer's on, we have a priority list that's just kind of unspoken.
Because this is kind of like that, but it's just like player threats as opposed to like a card
Yeah.
threat. I feel like
Yeah.
I know I'm
I think-
guilty of that. If somebody
I think
wins
it
2
can
games, that's
Oh
it.
yeah. It can definitely apply to players too, or just like, the plays. I think it happens with Crim sometimes, because I know Crim's gonna drop his Notion Thief and his tax pieces, so that's how you get to the like kill Crim first
That's-
meme, which is like not actually logical, right? Like it's not actually the right way to play, but still,
It's
I
pretty
know he's the
logical.
one most likely to Notion Thief me, so he's gotta go.
It's the anyone but him game plan.
We do this all the time. Phil's like, who's more likely to wrath me? He looks at me and Crim. I'm like, we look at Crim. Does he have 3 open black mana? This is just tight play. Am I gonna get Oppo agented? Like,
Wait, that's actually
you gotta
correct
use
play,
past
though.
information, right? Like,
Yeah.
I guess it depends how they won the first game. If they like pulled some miracle play out of nowhere, cool, right? If they just like raffle stomped everyone from turn 2 because they're playing a higher power level deck,
No, let's
So
say
you
they like
obviously gotta
joded
go
you
with
game
them.
1. You know, they joded you game 1, and they're like, I'm going to tone it down a bit. And in game 2, they bring out Miram, and you're like, okay.
this one is like arch enemy commander is in the command zone. You don't even need to know the player. But if you just follow the same like when Crim used Blanca, right? We're like, if we just follow the same plan, we know exactly what's gonna happen, and we now know how strong this thing is. We gotta arch enemy it, right? And then if you just stop the table, you gotta believe that everyone's just gonna go for you game 2. I can't
You deserve
I
it.
can't imagine you being salty about it. Like if you're being salty about like stomping the table and everyone ganging up on you, like I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Like what are you expecting, right? Like
But guys, it's budget. Blanca is like $60.
Hey,
But guys, it's budget.
I don't use that word. I don't use the B word anymore. I know. I already get.
Blanca's $60.
The PTSD starts flashing. They start seeing Gargos everywhere, and I'm like, okay, it's fine.
all right, Tomer, hit us with the last mistake.
Okay. There's a lot of the time people look at the board and they'll decide who to attack or who to like focus on based on, who has the scariest army. But most commonly, if everything's just kind of wishy-washy and you don't want to read everybody's cards, they're like, I'm just gonna hit whoever has the highest life total, right?
Mhm.
Mistake. Because sometimes the people are at the lowest life total deserve to be punished for their low life total. For example, the person who goes to turn 1 Ancient Tomb and starts activating it every single turn, and they're at 30, and they're like, oh, don't hit me, I'm at the lowest life total. Well, good, I want to put you at the lowest, I want to put you at 1 so you can't activate the Ancient Tomb anymore, okay? Or let's say somebody's like being the combo player, it's like, oh, I'm not playing anything, you guys just leave me alone, all I have is an astronaut's altar on the battlefield, leave me alone. No, you kill them, you attack them. I don't want to see the other pieces. I want you dead. Same thing with like control players. Like they have 8 cards in hand. They're like, hey, don't attack me. I might cast one of my spells. Make them have it. Attack with everything. Don't be a coward.
I actually am going to add on to that the whole point that you brought up, and not only just attacking the players, spending their life total, sure, because maybe they should be punished for having the mana advantage, like Tomer had mentioned, but actually just making the right attacks. As in, the attack is about like the correct one. Don't roll the die. Don't, unless it specifically, tells you like it's a randomized thing. Don't roll the die. Pull the gloves off. It's okay. I don't need a training wheels. Okay, you just hit me because you want to, because I am the threat. Speaking of threat assessment, also on top of that, don't be afraid to attack the person, regardless if they're at the highest life total, the lowest life total, whatever it is, because how many times do I regret taking my foot off the gas against Richard, and Richard's like, oh, you know what? I did have the combo. Oh, look, I won. Oh, that's so weird. I'm like, oh, Richard, I should have killed you. I think that's pretty important.
That's your own poor threat assessment. I have nothing to do with that. I have nothing to do with that.
Life total is not a good indicator of where you are in the game, and that's like the number one
resource.
Thing. Yeah,
it is a
number
resource.
one thing, especially if you're spending it. Like if the person's spending it, punish them, make them hurt.
I feel kind of called out. It feels like you're saying you should attack Seth more. Is that the bottom line?
Maybe.
But
does it feel
you
like
are
this
right.
message is at you? Then maybe you are the problem.
Maybe I'm just projecting myself on all this, but I think that is true. That I tend to default to attacking the highest life total because I don't want to feel bad about it. And if there's someone's at a lower life total, I'm like, oh, like they're kind of they missed their land drop or whatever. Like they're just like not really doing much. So it's an easy way to not feel guilty about it, but it's definitely not correct. It's like it is a mistake as far as like playing properly.
Wait, is that true? So there's this conflicting stance of, I don't know what it is, being nice to everyone. Like the reason we don't look at the mana screwed player and like beat them down mercilessly because you're like, well, you're kind of mana screwed. But when they catch up, they're gonna have all their cards in hand because no one has played with them, and they're gonna win the game most likely, right? So it is technically correct to kill them.
And they might be
But
playing
don't feel good
24
about it.
lands, and they need to learn a lesson about adding more to their tech.
I don't know about killing them though. What do you think? You think it's right to kill them because that's technically correct? Like I feel socially that's wrong.
Think of it like this. It's a can of whoop ass, but on suspend, right? Because they have literally done nothing. Because they've done nothing. How many times have y'all been nice to me because I got mana screwed or something like that, right? And you left me to stay alive like a blood bag, and then I come back and be the biggest annoyance ever, right?
Yep.
And then I usually take over the game.
But that's the price you pay to be socially acceptable, right?
But
because if someone is mana screwed, what can you all do? Everyone just take all the creatures, kill them, and then we'll play a 3-person game after.
No,
right?
but
One threat
there's
removed.
actually
Right?
there's
But like
it's
that,
not
that's
black and
clearly
white though.
not what we want to have happen, right? But that's
I'm not
very
advocating
free and EV positive for you, right?
I'm not.
It's not black and white like that. It's also like the tempo of the game, right? Right.
It's a tempo play.
All right, Crim Goblin.
Kill Crim.
Sometimes you can read the situation, assess that, okay, they're at 2 lands, they're stuck at 2 lands or 3 lands. Anything impactful on turns 7, 8, and 9, they need to have like at least 6+ lands. So you're good there. But maybe if they're still stuck on 3 lands, it's turn 11, they're probably the farthest from being a threat. And that's totally okay to not kill them there. So it's not like this always kill the person that is mana screwed. Kick them. Keep getting them.
And-
like, no.
And I think
it comes down to like there's a lot of nuances in between. So
yeah, I don't think you should just take out the mana screwed player, but I do think there's something to be said for getting them to a point where if they do get back in the game, you can deal with them then if you have to. I know we've had conversations about that before.
That's worse.
Like, is it?
I'll leave you at one life. I'll leave you at one
like
life.
2 or 3.
Finally, my
You can
last
be a little
land,
higher
a
than
fetch
that.
land.
But I wasn't even advocating kill the mana screwed player. I was more talking about the person who's like, oh, I don't have a board state. Oh, I'm at the lowest life total.
Like,
But like they have a
yeah.
full grip of cards in their hand and stuff, and they're not doing anything, quote unquote.
But
But
you
they're drawing
can't
a
tell
bunch
the
of cards and
difference.
stuff.
So there are lots of games where I sit at 5 mana and I pass the turn, and then Krim is like, he's got combo pieces in hand, and I'm like, no, I actually got all bricks, right? But there's other games where, yeah, I actually have all the combo pieces. I'm just waiting for you guys to tap out and win the game. You can't tell which situation it is, right?
Well,
how do you know?
If you're stuck at
correct
2
thing
lands, then that's
is
one.
to test them and start hitting their face, right? Like if it's all equal, you might
Just
as well start testing it, right?
Just a little off the top.
Who is?
Just that's all I'm saying.
What
Just
if
a
we-
little off the
Right?
top.
What have we consistently learned? Richard always loves playing things that protect him and him only. He will never use those if we don't make him like sweat.
That's true.
And what we often do is we just punch each other. And then Richard, at the end, after we've exhausted all our resources, Richard, fresh from his vacation spa, stepping out of his steam room in a sauna,
Yep.
in a robe. Oh, I guess I'm ready to battle.
Is it
like,
foggy
we're-
I got
here?
4 fogs and a counter spell. You
Yeah.
ready?
Yeah.
What do you got?
That's the same thing with control
Like-
players, right? Like if they have like a full grip of cards, yeah, okay, they have interaction, right? But what are you gonna do? Just cower in a corner and just let them win? Like, no, you gotta force them to use some cards, right? You gotta make them have it. Can't
Yeah,
play
I mean-
scared.
It depends on which color because most of the forces are kind of bad.
Oh, yeah. You get-
Ah,
no, you got the
joke.
flare now. You know, you could sacrifice something and cast the counter now.
That's true.
That's
There's that too. But like legitimately making control decks do stuff is good. But I think that this is a lot of
or the fog player.
what's funny is
Fog.
it all kind of ties back to threat assessment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the control player has one card and like just like 50 basics, they clearly haven't done anything. You've probably, it's like safe to say that if your choice is to keep punching the counterspell player or punch the artifact player, but the artifact player has their stuff on board, or punch the control player who has one card, I'm probably going to hit the artifact player. Or you know what? Or the enchantment player, or the deck that just that is clearly not juiced of resources.
Yeah.
Just hit the
I'm
Mystic
gonna go
Study
there.
Player. That's what I would do.
Sure.
I
The
feel
Ristic
this one is
Study player
easier to
is
talk
different.
about than to do because it just plays on people's like etiquette or something, right? It's like you go to a
Yeah.
stranger in a store and ask them something super awkward, and then they'll probably do it for you because they don't want to like look mean or they want to be nice or something like that, right? And you can take advantage of that situation. This is kind of it, right? Like you're stuck on 4 lands, but are you really stuck, right? Or you have no board and you're at 10 life. Do you really have nothing going on, or did you just sandbag it all? And it's hard to tell,
Mhm.
right? And then people will just be nice because who wants to be that guy who like just punched that guy to death for no reason, right? Didn't let him play the game, made his night bad. Like, why would you want to do that, right? So
Well,
you just be nice
tap-
to them,
taps-
and then they
taps
end up
the sign.
killing you.
if they have a bunch of cards,
Your deck will not always do its thing.
if they have a bunch of cards in hand and they're making lane drops, then I hit them. That's my easiest tell. Like if you're stuck at 2 and you're discarding that the hand size,
Yeah, but then what
All
if you're criminal? You're like, I got all lands in hand.
I mean-
I got all lands.
then you
in
don't
hand.
believe him.
I drew
You don't
another
believe him.
land.
You're like, you don't believe his lies.
You have
You
all-
put a tattoo. You put a tattoo on your thing. It says "Don't believe his lies," and you read it every single time. It says all I have
Memento.
lands. I'm sure you do
Just
have lands.
memento.
I'm sure you have lands and spells because that's what your deck is full of, right? Like, oh yeah,
You need to remember, I don't say I have all lands. I
I
say
have
I
lands.
have lands.
Yeah,
I drew land.
good for you.
I have lands.
So do I.
Which is that he
true.
gives you the puppy eyes, and then his doggos give you the puppy eyes. And
All right,
you're
if
like,
you-
geez,
3 pairs of puppies.
If
how am
you
I
brought
gonna go
out
to
the-
sleep tonight?
If he brought out the corgis,
It
I wouldn't
works.
attack him. That's my kryptonite. But
Richard, your hair is so nice today. Oh, thank you.
What's the compliments? I full shields up. What's the compliments coming?
Yeah. You know something's gonna happen. Yeah.
something bad's
It's a
happening.
giveaway.
Something bad's happening. All right. So those are our biggest mistakes. What we think are the biggest mistakes that you can make in Commander. Let us know in the comments. Are there any mistakes we missed? Is the answer get good? Because I feel bias and threat evaluation is just get good, really.
put more lands in your deck. Get good. All of these are just get good. So
Well, you
let
see,
us know.
Get good is the universal solvent. That could be the answer to every podcast ever.
You don't
We
need
could've just
interaction
said that
if
8
you're
times,
good.
Yeah. Just get good. Get good. Tomer, get good.
Get good,
Tram,
get
get good.
Get good.
Get good.
Get good.
You're good.
Get good. So we'll see you all back here next week. See you, everyone.